Hello, everyone. On the occasion of National Education Day, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to you on this virtual panel discussion titled The Changing Face of Education in India in a Post-Pandemic World, the Roadmap for 2022. Now, look, the way we teach, the way we learn clearly has undergone a massive transformation, and it's only accelerating. Pandemic did end up having a major impact on the education sector. It's been a bit of an outlier the last 18 months. Lots of changes are happening, lots of education moving online, lots of talking about how skilling can be provided to everybody. And now further changes are coming. There's a new national education policy that has been announced. It's talking about increasing the gross enrollment ratio up to 50% by 2025. And that's much, much higher than where it is right now, and certainly much more than it was a decade ago. So obviously, massive changes are coming. And it's my great pleasure to welcome our esteemed guests for today's discussion. They are the people who are really leading a lot of the transformations that we are seeing all around us. So let me start by welcoming Mr. Amitabh Kant, the CEO of Niti Aayog. His influence is spread across the board in a large number of sectors: digital, ease of doing business, education, branding, you name it. Amitabh Kant has a role in it. So it's great to have him with us here. Devjani Ghosh, the president of NASSCOM. It's a pleasure, ma'am, to have you with us. You've just announced future skills and a lot of great work being done out there on how India upskills itself and acquires the skills. How do Indians get the skills that they need for this new digital world? So it's great to have you with us. Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, the chairman of AICTE. It's a pleasure, sir, to have you with us. Technical education obviously is going to be really important in this. And last but by no means the least, to Ronnie Screwvala, the chairperson and co-founder of Upgrad, the partner in this in our conversation today. Great to have all of you, and thank you all so much for joining us. Mr. Kant, why don't I just start with you? When you look at the entire education sector, the fact that we are digitizing, as fast as we're digitizing, and the fact that the pandemic has, in a sense, sent a signal to everybody, pretty much saying that the future is digital and we all better get on, we all better accept that. Has that meant that this is potentially an inflection point for the education sector as well?
So, Vikram, first and foremost, I think it's important to understand that we have achieved universal access of education. The gross enrollment ratio has also gone up by about nearly 10 percentage points over a decade. But we must acknowledge the fact that learning outcomes have left a lot to be desired. Both the National Achievement Survey and the ASSER report highlight that in any classroom you'll find students actually who are on a spectrum of learning levels. Just to give you an example, on a grade 5 classroom, you may have a group of students in grade 5 level, few of them. Others may be of grade 3 level, and a few cases here, students at grade level 2. And, there is a transformative power of technology which has the potential to make meet the above challenges, which is a huge challenge for a teacher in India and across states. Actually, the plight of the teacher in these classrooms, they have a textbook of grade level 5 as the only teaching learning material, and it's not possible for them to teach all the students with that one textbook, because students are at a spectrum of levels, different levels of learning outcomes. And if you leave behind some students, they get left behind forever. And that is why learning outcomes are very poor. Now, what the technology can really do is to help the teacher to keep the teaching track of the learning progression for each of these students. And teachers could then actually have adaptive technology to tailor the instruction for each of the students. So you are able to actually focus on each of the students through technology. And while the teacher explains the concept in the group, the other groups could actually attempt questions relating to their levels, and technology can really improve learning outcomes across the board. If some student is good at maths, the others will be weak at social sciences. And if some are good at geography and history, they'll be very weak in science and maths. And therefore, you can track learnings across. And those students who require additional doses of classes, you can actually provide them extra doses. So based on data, you can then use artificial intelligence and machine learning to provide additional classes and improve learning outcomes across the board. And actually, this can have a technology can have a huge impact on learning outcomes. I do not see any other way by which we can improve learning outcomes in a very progressive, radical, and a quick manner other than using technology. And I'm really delighted that the National Education Policy of 2020 has really gone big on the use of technology for improving student achievements from KG to PG. And therefore, that will
Right.
make a huge, huge difference in the coming years.
So, Ronnie Skruwala, let me toss to you then, because as Mr. Khan said, it is very possible. We know how limited the infrastructure is for physical learning. We know the shortage of teachers. We know a lot of the issues around how do you get admission. It's almost virtually very, very tough to get admission into a physical university, especially one of the top ones. How far away do we think we are from a time when people will say online education is just as good, or perhaps in some ways even better than going to a physical university? How far away do you think that is? And do you think that's a correct premise that you can actually treat online education as an alternative to having to go to a physical university or a physical college?
So, Vikram, 2 points that I would like to assess here. One, when we look at the word education, we kind of put it in the framework of an event. You go to school and you go to college. The first thing I think, if we want to accept the online framework or the inclusive framework versus the exclusive framework, we have to accept the fact that overall, there is the theme of lifelong learning, which means it's no longer whatever policy we're catering to cannot necessarily be bridged into school and college as an event, but on a much longer. The second, I think, is the very sharp word Mr. Kant used constantly is outcomes. The day we're ready, because education at the end of the day is about outcomes. If you can measure the measurable outcomes, and the outcomes are that as a learner, you've learned more, or you've specialized, or you can get yourself gainful employment, that's the day when the roads will cross. So we can put down any predictions we want on technology, on faculty. But today, two things. Technology will enable, especially in India, a lot more people for online to make it a more inclusive medium versus the exclusive medium that universities is. And second, and I think that's the bridge. COVID, to a certain extent, has evangelized online learning. But the sad part for me is, most people, the perception is it's simple Zoom learning, which it is not. So outcomes in online will determine the period and the adaptability, the acceptability for gainful employment of everyone who takes that.
Right, you spoke about outcomes. Dechani Coach, if I can turn to you. We keep on hearing about industry saying we're not getting the talent that we need. We need more people with the skills that make them employable. And what Ronnie just said about having a lifetime full of education. It's not about going to school or college anymore. You've got to keep on acquiring the skills as you go forward. Is that something which you think is a a shift in mindset which people are now accepting? You got to keep on learning. You got to keep on upskilling yourself or future skilling yourself all the way through.
So Vikram, there are three things, right? First, industry is not saying we need the right skills. India industry is saying we need the right attitude. We need the right mindset. That is much more important than aptitude or skills, right? And I think what is the attitude? What is the employable attitude today? Right, the ability to learn, having that quick, trainable mindset, learnable mindset, because it doesn't matter which university you have gone to, you will still have to learn on the job, given how fast our industry is changing. So having that ability to learn, problem solving, collaboration, just being very creative, thinking out of the box, these are the skills that is determining whether you are employable or not. As far as aptitude is concerned, I mean, what are they looking at? As long as you have a very good foundation in STEM, you have good foundation in some of the emerging technologies, especially analytics, cybersecurity, AI, etc. We will train you on the rest. Yes, if you have deep skills and you have built the right attitude, you're the perfect you're the perfect employee. So I think this is a fantastic time for us to take a pause and just reimagine the whole business of education, and how we think of education. Because if you look at what the companies are doing, I'll give you two examples: TCS and Wipro. Both have completely done away with the usual campus recruitments, etc., and they have launched their own assessment, and they have completely removed barriers to entry. Anyone can come in and sit for those assessments, no matter where you are, no matter which university you're going to or not going to, no matter whether you're from science or arts. As long as you are able to meet the requirements of the assessment, you're able to pass, you at least get into the door for an interview, right? So I think there are all these changes are happening where, one, we have to really strengthen the connect between education and employability. And it's much more about building the right mindset. It's much more about building how we think versus how much we know. And I think that's a key difference that we need to, and which NEP, by the way, puts a lot of focus on. So
Correct.
I'm really, really excited about. I mean, I would love to see NEP getting implemented much faster, because I do think it brings the right focus, shines the light on the right focus areas. So it's about re-engineering how we think about education. I think it's got a lot to do with democratizing education and removing a lot of the barriers that we have created around education, so that attitude can really get the weightage that it deserves.
Right.
And at the end of the day, for me, technology is just a tool. It is a tool. A lot depends on how we use technology. So yes, if we use it right, it can be tremendously inclusive. It can improve learning outcomes. It can bridge gaps, but it all depends on how we use. And as Ronnie said, if online education stays as Zoom education, I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
that
you
is
can't take the
absolutely
same models you're
impossible.
saying. You can't take the same models and saying, okay, fine, instead of coming to a physical class, you're doing it on Zoom.
Absolutely.
Oh, that can't be done. Professor Sasibuddhe, before I come back to Mr. Kant and the panel once again, on technical education, is it equally easy to find new paradigms, new shifts in technical education, especially because now there's so many technologies that people need to learn. Just when they thought they had figured out the internet, now you got AI, then you didn't figure out AI, now suddenly you're talking about the metaverse and extended reality. Where do you stop? Where do you stop having new technologies that you should be knowing about?
Yeah, Vikram, thank you for this invite. And then a lot of learning from the previous speakers, Amitabh Kant, Devjani, and Ronnie. What AICT has been looking at is how we really empower our students. And two, three statements which each one of them talked about are relevant. Learning to learn and lifelong learning are the two basic principles. We in our institutions have to certainly take care of some basics, foundations, but later, unless a student is capable of learning on his own or her own, there is no way that a person becomes employable. Because by the time one graduates in the 4 years of an engineering program, many new technologies would have emerged, and he cannot say that I do not know this. And therefore, whether it is emerging areas like AI, IoT, machine learning, robotics, augmented reality, virtual reality, cybersecurity, data analytics, blockchain, all of these have become order of the day, but these also will become outdated by the time another 4 years go. So I think therefore learning to learn becomes the most crucial one. And to create that, how we have to do it is in the form of making our students innovative in learning as well. And that is why, I will give an example of our Smart India hackathons, which we have been doing, where students are made to think out of the box, come out with solutions to the challenges and problems that both the government as well as the public, private sector, industry faces. and some of those students will then solve those problems in an hackathon. So all the traits of what industry is looking for, be it problem-solving ability, be it communication skills, be it use of latest technologies, be it working in teams, be it providing leadership, be it time management, be it honesty, ethics, and integrity, everything is tested in that just 1.5 days of program. And therefore, our new ways of learning have to be evolved around these kind of new technologies which are emerging and self-learning. And we have a Swayam platform, indigenous book platform, where all new courses also will be available. So you don't have to worry about where do you find these courses in learning. We have a NEET platform, National Educational Alliance for Technology, which is an AI-based training, outcomes. We want a certain outcome out of a learning, and some student, based on the previous available learning capability of his and what he has achieved, one can go in a track. Someone will do it faster, someone will be slower, but everyone will achieve the same outcomes at the end of that. I think that is what we should look at this juncture.
All right, Professor Sasrabuddhe, if Amitabh comes back and come back to you, as a signaling from the government. Let's look at jobs and employment. There used to be a time when everyone used to feel, this is what I want to do. I mean, life means you're going to go off and get a government job. That's where security is. You're going to join the IAS, you're going to join the IRS, IPS. That's what it. Then that started to change. You said private sector throws up, and now a lot of people want to do entrepreneurs and have their own startups. When it comes to education, till now, it is still the situation that whether it's a parent or whether it's an adult, you're still sitting and saying, I've got to go to school, I've got to go to college, and I've got to get the degree, and then I am done. How do you change that? And how can the government help in trying to say that that's not necessarily the way things are going to work anymore? Because all of you seem to be saying that's not the way it's going to work anymore. So what does the government do to say, tell everyone?
So Vikram, that's an excellent question. And actually, recently the National Digital Educational Architecture, NDIA, was released. And that lays down the framework to energize and catalyze the digital educational ecosystem. It has laid down standards for products and content which any private player could use and plug in their products. In the higher education space, the introduction of academic bank of credits, there's a regulation to obtain 40% of program credits through online mode, and by offering of online degrees are going to transform the entire higher education space, and this is going to be a transformation like never before. So imagine, a girl sitting in a remote village in Bihar or Andhra or Telangana would be able to access world-class learning from the best of the faculties from both India and abroad, and get a graduate degree or diploma or certification as per her choice. And I think, there's much talk of digital divide that exists, but I see this as an opportunity for greater innovation. And I would merely say that with this NDARE, actually, the emphasis that technology is a great, it emphasizes that technology is actually a great leveler. And if India is to improve its learning outcomes, if India is to ensure that we are able to transform our education space, it has to be done, and on a large scale like India. We must understand that the size and scale of India is bigger than 24 countries of Europe. And if you need that transformation on a rapid scale, the transformative power of technology must be used to democratize learning. And we need to embrace this technology. We need to own this technology and actually use it for making sure that each and every student performs exceedingly well in learning outcomes. That, to my mind, is really the key. We've been able to provide access, but our learning outcomes leave a lot to be desired, and only technology can help us to do that.
Rani, I just want to come back to one of the points that Devjani was also talking about, and you were referring to about lifelong learning. Now, let me just give you a personal example. I think I was over 50, well settled in a career, And that's when I started hearing from various people saying AI is going to disrupt every industry, and everyone needs to figure out how to use AI to disrupt their own business. So I'm more than 50, and I'm suddenly sitting down with bunches of books trying to teach myself linear algebra or singular value decomposition. I can tell you it was tough to do, and I had a lot of people looking at me and saying, "You're crazy. Why on earth are you doing this?" But is this something which you think is going to fast become the norm? Because it's also somewhat scary that just when I finished, I thought I'd finished doing that. I've gone back to sort of school and reading these books at the age of 50. Now people are telling me, now you're going to go off and repeat that entire process, whether it comes to blockchain or Web3 or now the metaverse or something else. So it seems you've got to keep on doing it every 3 or 4 years. Are you finding, what are the sort of courses that you think people should be looking at when they're 40, when they're 50, when they're 60? What do they have to keep on learning?
Yeah. So I think, firstly, just as a piece of advice, Vikram, I don't think books is going to get you into learning. That's just one process. It's like saying I'll go and watch content and I'll learn. And it's, again, the Zoom way of learning, which is not going to necessarily do. It's a very interactive process. There's a lot of peer-to-peer learning.
I did add courses to it, don't worry. It wasn't just...
Absolutely. So I think books is not going to be able to do that. You'll have to actually get in to do a high outcome, deep learning, interactive course if you want to get to the online part. Second, I think Devjani touched on it a lot, which is about what is my favorite topic is employability, and that is soft skills. I think today what the online medium can do is groom people to be a lot more 360 degree and a lot more oriented. I know we've had a skills push in the country, but skills has always looked at one aspect of a technical training. But unless you're really employable, today you'll have to be a generalist and a specialist in almost anything that you do. And that combination is not taught at you at that early stage in life. It is something you need to evolve to. And when you want to be that, it is not an option. It is not about a when, it is not about an if, it is something that will land on your table. Organizations will look for the top 50 percentile of them performing people. No longer is the case where the bottom 10% move around because of performance assessment. It's going to be a much more. So between the combination of being a generalist and an analyst, and my favorite topic, which is soft skills. In countries like India, I think the ability for us to be able to take our level of understanding of soft skills up, and it may mean different things to different people. And I think technology and online will augment that learning experience because it will make it permanent. When you're in a curriculum-based approach, you don't have time for the element of competitiveness, communication skills, and many, many things in soft skills. And that 50% will traject your working professional to a completely different level.
Johnny, apparently, so soft skills is something we looked at. We keep hearing that Indian businesses, something like 50% of Indian businesses are being unable to hire the right candidates because they lack the skills that they really require. What, at the end of the day, do you think are the key skills and the key requirements? You said learnability, that's clear. Ronnie was talking about soft skills. Anything else that you would tell young people out there? Acquire ABC and you'll find it really easy to get a job.
So I'll sum it up by paraphrasing what one of the top CEOs told me, right? He said, we hire for how you think, or the attitude part of it, and we train you on the rest, on the skills. And so therefore employability comes down to how you think, or as Ronnie said, the soft skills, which traditionally India has had. I think we've always had an advantage when it comes to soft skills. For any of us who worked in an MNC, you've always heard in a room full of people or full of employees from different countries how the Indians are great in collaboration and building their networks, etc., etc. So I think we've always had an advantage when it came to soft skills. Soft skills today is pretty much deciding where businesses will go, because it's deciding where employable talent exists. I absolutely believe this is India's moment, where there's a global talent crisis. The number keeps going up, but on last count, the demand for digital talent is 6 million more than what the supply exists, just in the top 6 or 7 countries, right? And it's growing by the day. So, given that there is such a big crisis, there's tremendous focus right now. Businesses are becoming and I'm speaking to them daily, they are deciding investment strategies based on where they will have the best access to talent. And I absolutely think this is India's moment. If we can focus on, as I said, sort of re-engineering that how we learn and what we mean by education, and focus on building the thought process more than filling us up with a lot of knowledge which may not be useful at all at some after a point in time. I think that's the pivot we have to make. And Vikram, you said this twice. You asked Sabuddhe, and you also asked Ronnie, like, when does it stop or when does it finish? I think we have to realize we are in an infinite game. The digital era is an infinite game. There is no finishing line.
Yeah.
So therefore, the entire traditional education system is at a risk of losing relevance unless we disrupt something majorly, because we're so used to those finishing lines. By end of 10 you will know this, by end of 12 you will know this, by end of engineering you will know this. Doesn't make sense anymore, right? So I think this is again a great time for the right questions to be asked. And I mean, honestly, if there is one segment that is completely ready for drastic disruption, it's the education system. And one example I'll give you, technology is not just about how you learn or how you teach. We have to leverage technology to change some of the legacy processes like apprenticeship, internships. These are some of the best learning tools. Why are we not recognizing online apprenticeships, online internships? I know I keep bugging Professor Sabuddhe for this, but we have to seize the opportunity. If you're sitting in a small town, you
Right.
still can intern with a large company and get a job without having to travel, because we are in the hybrid world. You don't need to travel for your job. So I think
Okay.
we also have to change some of these processes.
Right. I know Mr. Kant has to leave to catch a flight. Mr. Kant, are you still there or have you already left? I thought I'd get a last word from you. I think he's dropped off, so we will say goodbye to him because he has a flight to catch. Um, Absolutely. I mean, I think that the answer was there in what Devjani said. There's no end date to this. You're going to keep on learning for forever. Devjani, just to answer it, to take that with another personal example, I've just had my dad is writing a book right now where he had to use AI and biotech, and at the age of 81, he was sitting with those online things that Ronnie was telling you about. And he had quite a blast. So theoretically, it is possible to do it. But the one thing which it is, I don't know how easy it is to get through the technological and other means, is real world experience, real world settings. So at the end of the day, do you think it's always going to be a hybrid of some sort between the great sort of courses you could get at what Ronnie is providing and some of the real world settings which you may require, and certainly real world experience will be required?
Yeah, sure, Vikram. Devjani had already said about internships. Unless whatever you learn in theory in the classroom, either in the face-to-face mode or in the online mode through digital means, ultimately, where do you apply, how do you apply, and how you can be innovative. This you will learn only when you indulge in what we call it as internship. Devjani said that she is bugging me. In fact, I'm bugging her. We have an internship portal which has 67 lakh students who have registered. So we made internship as mandatory for getting a degree in engineering about 3 years ago, and now they are in the final year. 67 lakh students of technical programs have registered on that portal, and we have 11.8 lakh internship opportunities available from the industry and the government departments. So there is a mismatch. Actually, we have only one-sixth students are going to be catered to. And therefore, I am bugging actually Devjani that NASSCOM has to come forward and give all the industries a call that they must provide each one of them 50, 100,000 internships. Thereby, we match the requirement with the demand. That is what is the need of the hour. So therefore, this is one part. Second part is you asked everyone, when does the learning stop? Learning will stop with our death. So till the last day on the bed, we must be learning. And therefore, whether it is a degree or certification, it should have, medicines have expiry date. All the outcomes also have an expiry date. Whatever outcomes we have decided that at the end of third year, fourth year of engineering will no longer exist, maybe 5 years down the line. So they will change. So it is like changing the goalpost probably. So we must be constantly learning, and that learning attitude has to be developed by everyone, teachers and students alike.
All right. Great. I'm going to now start taking some questions from the audience on this, and they're starting to come in. So, Ronnie, why don't I start with you? There's a question saying, how do you envision the edtech space in the next decade? I mean, obviously, it's been on fire the last few years. How do you envision the edtech space in the next decade? What will be significant things to look out for?
Well, I think the theme is definitely one of lifelong learning. I think everyone needs to accept the fact that education is not an event, and it's going to be something that you need to do that. I think some of the things that we spoke about today are really relevant. And I again mentioned the fact that, it's a journey from that perspective. I think some of the things you mentioned about hybrid and real world, we should not look at the fact. I mean, today, everyone is talking about the meta universe. Now, what does that mean? That means it's actual virtual reality in every sense of the word. So in a real world, you can be offline and online at the same time. Actually, the technology platforms online allow you for peer-to-peer learning at your choice and time, even more than what an actual real world university would do. And I think lastly, I would say the word university is a bit deep and heavy. It's vocabulary. I also say something like, I think philanthropy today is a 20th century word. We need to, when we're giving back, need to call it a 21st century word. Otherwise, the younger generation think you need to be 50 and you need to have a bank balance. So similarly, I think university as a name has got such a aura around it for the last century that I think we should almost coin a much more forward-looking word so that the younger generation realizes they're in this for the lifelong period and they're in this for good.
All right. Question for you, Debjani. How do we get corporates to encourage learning for mid and senior level executives?
See, today it's a matter of relevance, right? No matter which level you are, if you do not learn, you're not relevant in the system anymore. And if you're not relevant in the system anymore, there's someone out there who's more relevant and will take your job. So therefore, it actually comes down to performance, and it comes down to survival in the system, being relevant in the system. And companies are coming out with extremely innovative means of doing this. For example, there are companies that are thinking of creating learning passports. And, no matter which level, again, the level doesn't matter anymore because it is a must at every level. So employees have to keep getting stamps or putting in the information in their learning passports as they continue to learn, and that becomes as important as the data that you submit to show how much revenue have you generated, etc., whatever other KPIs they use. So there are some very interesting tools and processes coming into play, but again, today it has become so important for relevance. I mean, I think companies saying you must train, that train has left the station. Now it's becoming all about I must train in order to get a good performance review, or frankly, in order to even stay relevant in my job.
All right, question from Mr. Sasrabuddhe. Teachers across schools and colleges have been struggling to adapt to digital and hybrid classrooms. Now, I know Ronnie will say that they have to figure out how to do it, and it's not just about Zoom classrooms. But the question is, how do we address this? How do we get the people who are teaching to also adapt to the new realities?
Yeah, I think this is a very important question that you have asked, or whoever has asked, because teachers were used to teaching in a classroom environment, in a synchronous mode, live classroom. Now they have to address students who are not visible to them, and at the same time keep the interest of the students alive in the subject. So the nature of teaching learning process has completely transformed, and therefore there is a need for training of our faculty members, teachers in this new mode of teaching learning process. And AICT has developed a 8-module teacher certification program. And one of the modules is essentially rolling around this. In fact, it was much before pandemic. We did not realize this will become order of the day and we need this urgently. But it was probably, some loud thinking in amongst ourselves that technology is going to overtake, and therefore we started with this module of how do you use technology, leverage technology in order to train students, teach students, make students learn. And this is a very vital module out of those 8 modules. And if all teachers, be it school teachers to a teacher from not necessarily technical domain, arts, commerce, science, medicine, engineer, any domain for that matter, has to undergo this training, understand the nuances, then they will become successful in dealing with as a faculty member in the new era. We are talking about blended learning, we are talking about flipped classes, we talk about hybrid model, partial model. Nomenclatures vary, but ultimately, how do you deal with faceless? You are delivering a lecture to an audience which you are not seeing. The eye contact is not there, and still you have to be performing as good as on the stage. How do you do that? I think this is a big challenge, and this learning module is going to be very useful for our teachers in the future.
All right. Well, I think we're going to have to end it there for the panel discussion. Ronnie Screwvala, Dev Jani, Professor Satyabuddhe, thank you so much, all of you, for having been with us. I think just one final point from my side is that, look, learning, educating yourself about what's happening, it's a really exciting world out there. Look at the new technologies that are coming. Look at the way the world is being transformed in front of our very eyes. So, yes, do it because you want a good job. Yes, do it because you are acquiring skills. Yes, do it because you think your career prospects will be better. We should be learning about a lot of this just for the sheer joy of it, just for the sheer pleasure of figuring out, look at the transformation that's happening around us, and just to keep pace and figuring out what's happening. It's a great way to actually spend your time. So, I mean, that's just a final point, from my point of view. Thank you all so much for having joined us. And this is it from us and from this panel right now. But I'm going to toss across now to Mayank Kumar, the co-founder in India at Upgrad, who has a lot to say on how they're working on quality education. Over to you, Mayank.
Wow,
Thanks,
what a
Vikram.
fantastic panel it was earlier.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Vikram, for moderating this panel. As you would have seen in the last 18 months or so, education in itself has changed quite drastically, and online has taken more center stage, with many offline institutions getting forced to move completely online in this period of pandemic. At Upgrad, we have been in the center of all these transitions happening. While we work with individuals who want to take up direct online programs, we also work with colleges and universities and institutions that want to offer programs online. And we have seen how in the last 18 months, things have completely changed. And there's radical shift that has happened in the online ecosystem out there. I think one of the key things that we are realizing in the last 18 months that seems to have had a major impact is the shift in focus towards outcomes and results. Online education, as you would have noticed and seen and heard earlier as well, was a lot about access. It was just about making good education accessible to the large section of society. In this pandemic, that enabled us to bring out, an online medium enabled us to bring out high quality education to a very large audience set. But at the same time, what we saw as a significant shift happening is that people started questioning online education about outcomes. And that's what Upgrad stands for. We stand for outcome-driven education platform. And being at the center stage of all these transitions, we have a few findings because of which we came out with our half-yearly career trend report. While we saw what happened in the last year, some of the key elements that we found as part of this report, and this report is not just coming in from all 15 people, 100 people coming and discussing with us, but we have spoken and looked at trends from about 20 lakh plus registered learners. And we have spoken to about 700 plus industry experts, 300 plus hiring partners. So it's quite a consolidated, holistic understanding and data points coming from speaking to some of the stakeholders in the hiring and the career ecosystem. As you could see on the slide, across all sectors, hiring shot up in the last 6 to 12 months period. And this happened primarily because even in the pandemic era, while at the early stages, there were a big question marks around, is pandemic going to reduce in terms of number of jobs, job stability will go away. We have seen a reverse happening. The demand for skilled talent has just shot up through the roof. And all of us are hearing in the media and reports that technology talent, new economy startups, BFSI, each and every one are looking for high quality talent coming in. We have seen that across all sectors. I mean, it's in the lower zone of about 9 to 10%, and to an upper side of close to about 30 to 40% increase hiring that has happened from April, September 22 to October, March, 21-22 to October, March last year. This shift is a significant shift happening because now people are looking for talent who have a deep domain understanding plus a very strong understanding of the technology ecosystem out there. Now, for us, when we looked at this data, it was not surprising because our learners were finding these kind of outcomes, but we went slightly more deeper. We realized that technology was the biggest beneficiary of what was happening. And two big trends that were happening out there was US was flush with capital and they were looking for talent in technology space, and Indian talent enabled them to sort of make that shift happening. And we have seen a significant increase coming in the technology sector from remote work and gig hiring. Salary increments are pretty high, and we are seeing a significant shift happening in terms of how people are seeking talent and what kind of inputs folks are looking at providing these talented individuals at. Startups, which were a smaller section of the play, have also seen an increased funding rush coming in, because of which the hiring has increased. And we are seeing that most of these hiring and high ticket size hiring are happening in the technology space within the startup ecosystem. If we go some of the other sectors, even in sort of BFSI, media, entertainment, and the likes, there's a significant jump that we are seeing specifically for folks hiring for technology talent. I mean, reskilling, upskilling, whether it is hiring for talent coming from global multinationals, media and entertainment getting disrupted by the entire OTT space. Overall, the significant jump that we are seeing is all happening because even today, in the space of analytics, BFSI, media, entertainment, people are looking for high skilled talent force, and they're willing to shell out the right kind of dollar amount for filling the requirements of these sort of career needs. And these are some of the critical elements that we have seen coming in the overall talent market out there. And when we looked at the demand, I mean, there are sectors which are seeking these individuals, but the kind of demands that we are seeing evolving over a period of time has been more or less consistent, but there's a shift happening out there. So if you go back to April, we saw data scientists to be in a lot more demand, followed by data engineers, AI engineers, etc. But coming to September, we are seeing a greater push coming for big data engineers, project engineers, and project managers, followed by digital marketing. These shifts, we are coming out with looking at exact data from our learners and how they have seen the hiring trend shifting in the process. The common theme here is areas where technology is disrupting the traditional ecosystem. We are seeing the requirement for skilled talent pool increasing drastically. And over a period of time, if you look at Upgrad own internal numbers, a number of transitions have continued to rise. From JFM, jumped about 57%. In AMJ to JAS, we grew at about 12%. And that transition that happened is actual people getting placed over a period of time. We are seeing a maximum height anywhere between 200% to 450%. So people are seeing a significant jump happening. We are seeing a significant jump upwards of 400, 4x, 5x of the salary increment that people are seeing. There is a fair amount of ambiguity in the talent market, but we are seeing that transition happening, and people are looking at paying significant top dollars for good quality talent coming in. In terms of our quarterly numbers, which is the transition that we have seen from AMJ 2020 to JAS 2020, we have seen a significant jump happening on a quarter-on-quarter basis within last year to this year. So we have 1,000% increase in the number of transition happening, A, because Upgrad is growing, and B, because our career transition engine is scaling up very, very rapidly. Lastly, if I look at the top companies, for people, those who are hiring Upgrad learners, they come from majority from the technology sector, the TCS, Infosys, Accenture. We are seeing Xiaomi coming in, Capgemini, New Age companies also coming in and hiring. And the highest hiring companies in one shot, we have seen a lot of small boutique agencies coming and hiring in large numbers. Those have been the biggest sort of beneficiary of the hiring trend that we have seen in the last 6 months or so. The top programs, again, for upgrade has consistently been area where skills are changing rapidly. So whether it's data science or product management or digital marketing, we have seen a significant increase coming in terms of demand from the learners looking at these kind of programs. Now, coming finally to one last data point that I wanted to share with you. The top 5 roles, while they remain in the same zone of data, technology, and management, we are seeing an emergence of product managers, emergence of data analysts, data scientists, and data engineers happening over a period of time. And this has all the data that we have captured. And this is a report that Upgrade has worked in close association with ValueWorks to come out with the key trends and the key observations that's happening in the hiring market. So in conclusion, there are 3 key takeaways that I would like each one of you to take out from this particular session. Number 1, there is significant demand that exists for high quality talent pool. The demand for good quality talent has shot up through the roof, and people are looking for good quality talent, and the requirements have increased over a period of time. 2, within that requirement, people are seeking really top quality skilled talent pool. So any one of you who are out there need to invest in themselves to move up and to move up in the career journey. And then finally, for all the transitions that are happening, you need to have the right set of skills which are where data and digital are disrupting the core industries, and newer jobs and job roles are coming along. So finally, look, these are very positive trends coming in, and I'm sure these are long trends and long-term trends that are going to continue to stay in this ecosystem.
All right, man, thanks so much for that. And we're going to end it here. But I think the lessons are broadened here from all of this. There's massive disruption happening all around us. A lot of it is digitally driven. A lot of it requires new talents, new skills, new ways of approaching the world, new ways of having to continue to learn. And you're going to have to continue to learn all through your life. You're going to have to continue to educate yourself, acquire new skills, and figure out what's happening around you. These are exciting times, and those skills and the digital transformation that we are seeing is hopefully going to show the way to a completely new landscape as we go forward. That's it for now. Thank you so much for having joined us for this session.